Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things, whether it's comfortable or not. We think those conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So saddle up and enjoy the fireside chat.
Hey, William.
Hey, Dave. How are we doing today?
Well, for not looking at our cameras before the show, we're actually not half bad. We're doing good, but I fell asleep this afternoon and didn't get my chores done, and then your mom and I were watching a few episodes of Big Bang Theory, and I sort of got distracted. I should have been on a long time ago getting everything ready, but I wasn't.
I had the opposite problem. I got distracted doing productive things.
What were you doing?
Because I spent my morning. What was I doing?
Yes, I was so productive.
I'm working on clearing out our garage so that I can set up my shop in there. Because if you'd have responded to my text messages or Facebook messages, you'd know I'm building a forge.
Shop? You're building a forge.
I'm building a forge. got a plan for it. I bought some tools this weekend. I'm starting the process proper.
Well, just don't go and burn the place down,
No. Forging I can do out of doors, but the rest of it I'll do indoors. All the filing, sanding, polishing, shaping, yada, yada, yada. I'll do all that indoors.
So before we get into the show, we should let folks know what the show is all about.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Will and Dave Show. I'm Dave, and you are?
Will.
I'm old, and you are?
Almost old.
I'm conservative, and you are?
Very much not.
There you go. And that is the premise of the show.
That's the backdrop. Show. The premise is that we get to talk about the things that we see, hear, and read, and do so from very diametrically opposed viewpoints, or often opposed viewpoints, and still appreciate and love each other at the end of it all.
Yeah, we don't appreciate each other's opinions some days, but we appreciate each other.
The truer words have never been spoken.
And one thing that we do not like here is we don't agree to disagree. We just are disagreeing, and that's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay to not share the same opinion about things. That is what makes the world go round. Mm-hmm. So, before we go on, we should let our fine folks know about... Hello? Oh, you just muted yourself.
I did. I was on top of it.
Is your fan on, by the way?
Oh, it is actually.
I wonder.
Thank you for noticing that.
You can support the show at www.buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show. And for the price of a small cup of coffee, you can support the show. Mind you, it's on PayPal. Have you heard the news about PayPal this week?
No, I heard that something happened with PayPal, but I don't actually know what happened with PayPal.
Something happened with PayPal. I'm going to pull it up because you can't make this stuff up, Will. So PayPal, which is where our money for Buy Me a Coffee ends up, and it's been in the news this week.
Okay.
Because it was doing an update to its policy,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to bring it up because you can't make this stuff up.
Since you said that twice now, I have to assume that it's doubly as important.
It is.
Or doubly as spectacular.
I'm just looking for a screenshot of it because I can't... Twitter. Images.
Twitter. Images.
Twitter policy images. Surely that will come up.
Excuse me.
Surely that will be the one. No. I have to go to Twitter to find it, and that hangers me. No.
Twitter saying they may fine users over spreading of false information?
Yes. That is exactly what it is. But it was... I want to throw it on the screen because it is horrific. To the lengths that it was going to go. And so a whole bunch of people were yanking their money out of PayPal because...
Mm-hmm. Well, news like that would tank their stock prices, I imagine. I can't see it doing well for their bottom line.
No, and they reversed their position.
Yes.
So after you're releasing this new user agreement, in which, this is it in a nutshell, is that it was at the sole discretion of PayPal, if they felt it was hateful or misinformation against like any group of people, whether it be religious or gender or ideology or politics, they would not only remove the content and give you the boot off the platform, they would deduct out of your bank account up to $2,500.
Is that even legal for them to do?
Well, I'm sure it's in their user agreement that when you sign up that they can deduct. I'm sure they have a way around it. Their lawyers would not have approved it, but
True.
it just was. It's one of these things that everybody, of course, is up in arms saying, "What the heck? How do you just remove money out of somebody's PayPal account? That's their money," and they
Yeah.
reversed it because
I mean, I have no doubt that they have the ability to, but whether or not they have the right to
well,
is another question.
they reversed it, so that's all that matters. In the end, cooler's heads prevailed, and they removed that clause. I'm going to put my glass on because I can't see what the heck I'm doing, and I think it makes me look smarter. There you go. Does that make me look smarter?
Yeah. You need all the help you can get. So,
I was saying to somebody the other day, it was this morning. I said, I really want to get some gray hairs because I want to at least look wise. I may not actually be wise, but I want to look wise.
at this
And if I
rate,
get
I'm
some
on
gray
track to get
hair
gray
on
hairs
this
first.
head,
You got it in your beard, though.
yeah, but yeah, that's always hidden behind the mic. I'd have to be like that, you know.
True, true.
So this week we've sort of been going around what we wanted to talk about, and we landed on Herschel Walker,
Mm-hmm.
who apparently is conservative and a Christian, and yet he's had 4 kids with 4 different wives, 4 different women. He's been married twice, and he's had a couple kids who reports go, it's not been proven yet that he paid for abortions.
Well, actually, as of yesterday or Friday night, the person who was anonymously saying that he did that came forward, and it is one of the mothers of his children, one of his other children. And she has
Right,
the receipts
except,
to prove it. Well, she has the receipts to prove that he gave her the money for the abortion. She
well,
has proof of him giving her the money and what the money was for, as well as
there is
correspondence between them.
Yeah. So
Unless he
apparently,
can magically pull something out of his butt that proves his innocence, it's pretty cut and dry that he did exactly what she accused him of doing.
so abortion aside, you can be a conservative, have kids with 4 different women, be married to 2 of them,
Mm.
and still hold on onto your Christian values as
Mm-hmm. And hold everyone else to those Christian values is the important part. It would be one thing if he did it and if he was a hypocrite, but the fact that he's trying to hold a country to that standard that he can't uphold himself.
right. So here's a few of the websites. Here's the thing about, and I think you're going to find this with all candidates who are celebrities. There are going to be a few skeletons in those closets.
Oh, inevitably.
It just is a
I th- I think it's a
it's a
matter of
given.
degrees, though. It's the extremity with which he's pushed for, because he's a proponent of no abortions for any reason,
Right.
not for
Right.
health, not for victims of rape,
Yes.
nothing, zero, zilch.
Right. That's true.
Um, yeah, and in light of this, there's also been the added incident of one of his children, who is also a conservative um, social media light, I guess. One of his sons is a TikToker and I guess is a conservative, and at one point showed up with him at rallies back in the in the earlier parts of his campaign. But he's also started speaking out about basically how everything that Herschel Walker says is an absolute bold-faced lie. The way that he is as a non-existent father, and all of his family values and yada 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 are all just crap.
Which I can hear your cat in the background.
I can't do anything about that. He's locked outside the office, but he's still trying.
He still wants in. I I think this is what you get when you have a celebrity that you want to endorse as president, or not as president, for for any political office, who you know is going to have baggage. You just know
I
that.
mean,
So you just should assume that this is going to be the case, that there are going to be skeletons and you're going to have to work around them or work through them or ignore them. It's a part of the game, is it not?
yeah, I mean, I guess so. You would think that this would be the sort of thing that maybe Herschel Walker wouldn't build bedrock of his campaign on something that is very blatant. It's one thing to have a skeleton in the closet that he's never talked about, like maybe he never talked about having an illegitimate child or two or four. But to build his campaign on family values and to be a very not great family man by all accounts is more than just kind of having some skeletons in the closet, and more just a complete misrepresentation of his character, and an intentional one at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this. I cannot shake the feeling that they knew about it. They rolled the dice and hoping it would go away or it would get ignored. And for me, what bothers me is the fact that there are not a whole lot of moral values in this guy, and they are portraying him as this highly moral guy, and I don't think he is.
Do you know the part that scares me the most about the whole story, though?
What's that?
His campaign donations went up.
Yes.
He's getting more support now that this news broke.
Yes.
Because people think that it's just the left trying to take him down.
Yes.
And it's his own family that's bringing this to light. It wasn't like this talking about the Daily Beast reporting it. They weren't the first to report it.
It is an ex-wife.
It is an ex-wife, but also his son coming out, who at one point supported him.
Yeah, but I love my kids.
The mental gymnastics that are involved in thinking this is some sort of leftist globalist push to catch him right before the elections. I mean, maybe somebody sat on the information until closer to the elections. That's totally plausible. But
what if it's not true?
I mean, that would be a bombshell.
What if it's not true?
It doesn't look like it's not true, though.
I know it doesn't look like it.
You would think that at least someone in his family would be sticking up for him.
Well,
you think that even he would be sticking up for himself, but even he's not. He's just saying they're all liars and ignoring it. Even he can't provide any kind of viable defense for his actions or explanation or reasoning.
Well,
he's just ignoring it, knowing that he has a base that will happily ignore it.
Can't prove a negative. So if he says he didn't do it, you can't prove that. Like, you can't have a receipt that says I didn't pay for an abortion. You can't prove that. So it's hard to prove a negative. And so I get where his only option, if it's not true, is to deny it. But that is also his option. If it is true, he can deny it and say he can't prove it. So I mean, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But what happens if it's not true?
What happens if anything's not true? I feel like that's kind of a not necessarily useless, but a really...
This would not be the first instance of an ex-wife looking to make life miserable for a wealthy ex. Let's make it gender exclusive of an ex-partner to reach out and make life miserable for whoever the other side of the old relationship was. It's not unheard of. It's not unheard of for kids to say things about their parents that may not be true. So I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. I don't know, and I'm just asking the question: what happens if it is not true?
Then he needs to come up with some way to say that it's not true. If people are accusing him of being a poor family man,
he's denying it.
But that's all he's doing, though, is just saying, "No, I didn't." That's not any kind of defense. That's not any kind of. Yeah. It shouldn't convince anyone. He should be able to say, no, I've done X, Y, Z to prove that I'm a good family man. I've done this, that, and the other thing. Maybe I've tried to maintain a relationship with these illegitimate children because I think that's a valuable thing, or anything like that. He doesn't. He's just like, nah, they're all lying.
Well, Rick Scott apparently is going to campaign for him.
I don't know. I don't remember who Rick Scott is, but I'm going to assume I don't like it.
He's a Republican.
If he wasn't, I'd be surprised. I just find For a political party that wants to stand for values and family values and that sort of upstanding moral uprightness as the bedrock of their party and their ideology, the fact that this guy is still on the ballot blows my mind. The fact that somebody thought, because like you say, somebody had to have known about this. Somebody in his camp had to have known about it. Who in their right mind thought, no, he's the best option. He's the guy we should get behind.
I agree with you on that one.
Like that's the part that really gets to me. It isn't even just him himself and his actions, because
I think
stupid people do stupid things all the time.
I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, because he's an all-American football player.
He's well
family
known,
values.
and he'll get votes. Yep.
If you go to Google and you Google Herschel Walker, the top Googled things are still football stats about him. It's not this. It's not even his running for office. It's how fast could Herschel Walker run. Herschel, whatever.
Oh, my computer's going all wacky. Okay, here we go. It's back.
The absolute. What's the word I'm looking for? The paper thin veneer of morality that we seem to consider ourselves to be paragons of as just a general populace in North America is laughable. It's laughable. No, it's not laughable. I don't find it very funny. I find it kind of sad.
I don't find it funny at all. I don't find it funny. It is pathetic. It's the fact that we will use these people. I mean, I would say our last whole election was this way, was about a name and not an ability. And I think that we're doing it again. And moving on to Maitland Jones.
Yes.
So I sent this off to this week. It piqued my interest, as this is a guy who wrote the textbook.
Literally.
He wrote the textbook literally on, what did he teach? Organic chemistry.
Yep.
Which is one of the textbooks for med school.
Yeah.
Apparently. Now, I'm reading this.
It is.
I don't know this to be true. I'm reading it, so I'm assuming that the majority of the reports I read were true. And apparently, his exams were too hard, his tests were too hard, his homework was too hard, his assignments were too hard, and a large swath of his students wrote a petition and asked for him to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
And the university said, okay, and they did. What say you? In the words of Bill O'Reilly, what say you, William?
Well, I mean, upon reading the first article that you sent me, and only having read the first article, which basically said, as you just said, that the article implied that the school caved to the demands of the suit. I know. I'm just saying the way you're wording it seems more like it's from the point of view of the first article. So I'm saying from the point of view of the first article, the school bent under the pressure from the students to fire a professor that was just making their work too difficult. And the article went on to basically disparage that this is a field that's supposed to be difficult. They're going to be doctors. It's supposed to be hard. And if we're lowering the bar of entry for these people, what's that going to look like in the future? What are doctors going to be like in the future? And all these sorts of things. And that was the general vibe of the article, was that the students were going soft, and we should be scared about that. We should be scared that students can bully a school into changing faculty just because it was difficult.
And the other article I sent you?
The second article was written by a student paper of the school, and it clarified a lot of the points that were made in the original article, talking about how it was not just he had a hard class, it was that he had an exceptionally hard class by every metric and standard, and not because the work was difficult, but the amount of work was excessive. the lack of assistance that he would give his students was negligible. He
Right.
had scored very, very low relative to other faculty members in reviews and student assessments for many, many
Right.
years. It was not a new problem. This isn't something that the students just came up this year and were like, we don't like this, let's get rid of him. It's been an
Right.
ongoing issue that he is excessively hard on his students, and not hard in the sense that he pushes them to be better, hard that he just makes it more difficult and provides less
Right.
resources for the students to do better than other teachers, according to the students. And so it's not as simplistic as students got soft because it was hard and got rid of the professor. The professor was abnormally harsh
Right.
in a field that's already incredibly harsh. Like, just reading that article, how the average bio class like that was supposed to average between, like, what was it, 10 to 14 hours per week
Mhm.
just for one
Yes.
class of homework.
Yes. Yes.
And he was handing out something like 13 to 19 hours
Yes.
on average. But I'm just trying to think about that in terms of, like, it's almost like it is a part-time job. That's just one class. So I kind of understand if he's pushing something that's already that extreme, like a quarter of a 40-hour work week was the minimum before, and he's pushing that to almost double sometimes. That seems incredibly harsh.
Right. So I found this article, which I thought was interesting. Is his his whole class is meant as a weed out class.
Yeah,
And it's
organic
been known
chemistry
for
is
that.
often, not just
Is
for
a
him,
weed out
but
class.
for
So
many.
if you can't make it,
Mm-hmm.
you're out.
There's
The number of
there's a funny, sorry,
Go ahead.
there's a number of parallels between this story and another one that came out in the last week, where footage surfaced at a Navy SEAL training camp during Hell Week,
Yes.
showing some of the conditions that the soldiers were put through.
Right.
Because Hell Week is something that happens relatively early in Bud's training for Navy SEAls, and it's the weed out week. It's where they separate the wheat from the chaff, basically, because
Right.
they want the hardest of the hard sons of bitches to be SEAls.
That's
And so they
correct.
put them through a week of absolute misery. I think you get about 4 hours of sleep that week
I
while
think you're right.
working and doing physical things. But there was video footage of them tear gassing these guys. And getting tear gas during Hell Week is a relatively normal thing. But usually you get tear gas for a matter of seconds because there's a lot of potential health complications that can come with increased exposure.
Right.
And it showed these guys getting hosed and having to sit in it for minutes. And so there's a big conversation that's coming up of basically saying, well, yeah, it's a weed out class, but you're pushing
Right.
what was meant to weed people out and you're cranking it up to, 11, 12, 13. Now you're just being reckless.
So I
This is
have
obviously not as extreme, but
the idea is the same, though, wouldn't you say?
yeah, it's meant to weed out people
Yes.
who are willing to put in the time and effort. But when he's doing it where already organic chemistry as a staple class for getting into a medical field is already harsh. It's a harsh class across the board, regardless of the professor necessarily, like as a whole. And he's just dialing that up even further.
Yes.
Is he doing anything good, or is he just kicking out? Is he just weeding out too many doctors? Is he making it too harsh?
Well, do you want your doctors to have it easy in med school?
I don't want them to have it easy. The fact that they're already averaging between 10 to 14 hours of homework.
So if we had to err on the side of one side or the other, wouldn't we rather have it err on the side of over preparedness?
The problem is that you're going to lose more doctors in a situation where we're already strapped for doctors. And I'm not
Only in
saying lower the
Canada.
requirements for doctors. I'm just saying don't crank them higher.
So I'm going to say one thing about this, which was interesting to me, is he's 84 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this guy from Adam. I really don't, except there have to be younger and more up-to-date professionals
Yeah.
who are able to take this class on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only area I look at, and I thought it was an easy out for the school who he did not have tenure, so they could look at him and say, "Yeah, no, you're out of here. We're going to get somebody else."
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was an easy
I
out
don't
for
doubt
the
that was
school.
part of the thing when the students all were petitioning to have him be removed. I can't imagine the school didn't look at that and be like, "Hey, this is the time has come. You know, it's the right play. Makes the student body happy, and we'll get someone new and fresh."
If you do me a favor and read this article or this paragraph, because this is really what bothers me about it. Are you able to
The
read that, Will?
NYU students' willingness to challenge this kind of pedagogical gatekeeping is a
Sure.
sign of how power dynamics are shifting at colleges and universities in the United States. To some degree, that shift reflects a rising sense of entitlement on the part of students and their parents. But that's not the only factor at play. Another is the increasing diversity of student bodies, which casts many higher education traditions in a new light. One of those traditions is the weed out mentality, courses that are meant to distinguish between serious and unserious students. It has become clear, often do a better job distinguishing between students who have ample resources and those who don't.
So, in essence, what they are saying in this article is that it isn't really about weeding out those who know their material and those who don't. It's those who have the money.
The money and the time.
Well, the time is equal for everybody, so I don't think the time is really this.
Well, I guess it comes back to money, because if you're someone who
Yeah.
has somebody paying for your lodgings and
Right.
and all that jazz, then you don't have to worry about
So-
maybe having a part-time job or making rent.
But at the end of the day, I don't care. I want the doctor who is working on my colon to be the smartest that I can get.
Yeah,
I don't want them to have an easy ride through university as it was hard or because
Again.
And that's what I'm reading in this article, and I've read a few like this, is that it's the students are saying it's too hard,
Mm-hmm.
and the university is saying, okay, we'll make it easier.
See, this isn't making it easier. This is trying to get it closer to baseline. He was excessively hard. He was not an appropriate level of hardness, even by old standards. He was excessively
he wrote the
hard.
textbook on it. It isn't like
I know.
he's a new guy who woke
But
up.
writing the textbook doesn't mean that he determines the standards for how long you should have to do the homework and how much assistance or how much input or advice you should be getting from the person who's teaching it. He was the person who was making it more difficult than it had to be, because other people that teach his textbooks and still make the class hard are averaging totally different numbers than him. And those are the norm, not his numbers. His numbers are the outliers, despite having wrote the textbook.
So I was going to look for his response. His response I thought was good. Let's see if I can find it. He wrote a response, and it was a. Oh man! No, I'm not gonna be able to find it. Let's see if I can throw this on the screen. We are very concerned about our scores and find they are not an accurate reflection of the time and effort which we put into the class. To his answer was, they weren't in the class and they weren't watching the videos. They weren't able to answer the questions. And he tweeted a little bit later on about that he knew who was watching the videos and reading the information, and they weren't, and so they fired him. There's I find it interesting that we're okay with this in society. That there's even an argument. The only argument I can imagine is that he's out of date and he doesn't know the material. Except he wrote the textbook, so he obviously knows the material.
True.
I wonder if he's losing his faculties and not able to teach anymore, if that is a part of this. He is 84 years old. It's possible he's running into mental issues. I mean,
It's possible that
we have a commander in
new
chief
changes
like that,
in
we think.
Yeah, it's possible that the new ways of teaching in today's age, the new hoops that you have to jump through, having to teach a class over video, it may be that those things are things that he's not comfortable doing. And so he doesn't, his content, his teaching style may not translate well. That's also a possibility.
It is. And I'll give
And
the school a little bit of benefit because he's 84. I get that. But I would hope that they weed out as many from med school, as these are the people who put knives in our bodies.
I won't doubt that, like at a university like NYU, I don't doubt they're going to hire somebody who's still going to be hard on the students. Like organic biology is still not going to be an easy class. It'll be easier than he had it, perhaps. And I don't know how necessarily. Like the test scores may be identical, but the teachers may be able to provide more guidance to the students to help them achieve them better. They may be able to provide more resources, a more reasonable amount of homework. Who knows? I'm assuming the test scores are standardized for something like that.
Here are more responses. And these are other professors. I follow this Vinny Prasad. I do follow him, and he is a very good doctor. He actually works, I want to say the UN. No, not UN. CDC. I can't remember. He's on a bunch of committees. He's a smart guy. But well, William, I find it disconcerting.
I feel that this particular case, especially within a bubble, I'm not overly concerned about, because the students have the metaphorical receipts to prove that this was not some spur of the moment decision that this class is hard, we don't like it. They backed it up with numbers, and they backed it up with a history of behavior that was the reason for their doing it. It wasn't just low test scores. In this particular instance, I'm not overly concerned. Now, if we started to see a rash of schools following suit with this, with a glut of professors all losing their jobs because their courses were difficult, that would be cause for concern, I think, especially if they can't provide ample reasoning and due cause for the students to be agitated as such. But in this particular instance, I don't find myself particularly worried. I don't know how I feel about the students having that kind of power, but at the same time, we're talking about a large body of students. We're not talking about a handful of disgruntled students. We're talking about a majority of this person's class.
No, it isn't a majority. It was 83, wasn't it? Out of 300. 83 students out of.
I should clarify then. Looking at things like his
82 out of 350. Yeah.
Things like his student evaluations. If the average of that is substantially lower, I have to assume that a large chunk of the students that are coming through his class are obviously marking him lower than other faculty over the course of many years. Not just now, not just pandemic, but pre-pandemic as well.
Well,
because there's all that bedrock for this decision, I don't find myself particularly worried about it.
The last year and a half, I've been involved loosely at our local educational system here Spokane, and the only happy, not happy thought I have, it's a wreck. It is a wreck. The educational system is a wreck, and I look at the system because I've been working with our kiddos here. The only thing I like about it are the teachers, as they are working, and often it'll be the VP or the administrator who's in tears as they're not able to teach. They are not allowed to teach. It's horrible, and I read articles like this, and I worry that it's endemic in the whole, all the way up into university and college. And I don't know. I fear about our I fear for our kids. I really do.
I mean, I have lots of concerns about the education system, but they largely come down to class sizes and funding. I'm okay with the direction that education is going, in the sense that it allows students to be more self-deterministic. Generally okay. That's not like a blanket, everything is okay, but as a general rule, I'm mostly okay with students and children being more self-deterministic and having more control over their own direction. I always find it funny when we talk, because I remember like there's the age old, what do you call it, idiom of letting your kids stick a fork in a light socket once because they'll learn not to do it really quickly, or letting them
Right.
touch a hot pan would be a less dangerous example. You let them
Right.
touch something that's hot because they'll learn really quickly. And as a
Right.
parent, you kind of to a certain extent, within a controlled environment, you let them
Yes.
do things so that they learn that way. And I find it odd that we have a hard time societally extending the same grace, that same ethos, to kids when we talk about gender, pronouns, etc., and all these different things. Why we find those so egregious. I'm okay letting a kid go by a different pronoun or a different name or dress a different way, and maybe they'll learn they don't like it. Maybe they'll learn that they like it. I don't really care one way or the other. So I'm okay with the direction that school and education is going, in allowing children to determine more of their own everything. I mean, obviously there's limits to that. I don't want children picking their own curriculum from top to bottom, but I think there's something to be said for them having a hand in the choosing of their curriculum, or a hand in how they're taught. I think they're people, small, inexperienced, and only partially grown people, but people nonetheless.
So I hear you say that, and I shake my head. That's like a patient who walks into the doctor's office and looks at him and says, "I want to have a say in how you fix me."
They have a say in how they're fixed. A doctor has to
No,
have consent. A doctor has to have
you
informed
have to have
consent to
consent.
operate.
Yes, you have to have consent to
So
operate.
they have a
Although I'm
say.
not going to go to the doctor and say, "I want you to use the round scalpel and not the curved one because I think it does a better job," because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
Thankfully, a kid's pronouns or dress choices aren't generally a life-threatening
ignore that.
situation.
Ignore that. Your words were, in almost every case, they should be involved in picking the curriculum.
Involved, not have sole
Yeah.
discretion.
Why?
Involved.
Why? Why?
Why not?
Involved how? In the color of the
Why
book?
not?
Because they
Maybe in
don't
what they want to
know the
learn about.
curriculum.
There's only one way for them to find. Like, dude, I mean, it was one of the benefits to how I was raised. I was
Yes.
given options on which textbooks I wanted to learn from. I was given the choice if I wanted to learn, trigonometry 2, or if I wanted to do consumer mathematics. I was given options. I could pick the thing that was more interesting to me, that I would probably absorb better because I had an interest in it. I was allowed to pick my science textbooks within reason. With Sunlight curriculum, I was allowed to pick some of the books that I read and wrote reports on because they interested me. I didn't have sole discretion over everything I learned, but I had a hand in it. And I feel like that did really well for allowing me to engage in the things that I was learning. The things that I didn't engage in were the things that I didn't have much control over, like the fact that the government requires me to do a certain level of algebra that I have literally never used since learning it. And I hated it, and I did terrible at it because it was boring and pointless, and I had no choice in it. I was like, I have to do this. If I wanted to, like a diploma, this is what I have to do, even though it's useless knowledge for
I
me,
wouldn't say
for the
useless.
average Joe.
I don't know. I use algebra on a regular basis.
Congratulations. I also know people that work in certain fields that do. But if I
think
wanted
you
to work
use
in those
algebra
fields,
more
I
than-
would go learn algebra.
I think you use algebra more than you know.
I use simple deductive reasoning.
Yes.
If A plus B equals C, yada, 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 and I can find the value of two of those, I can find the value of the third one. I use simple deductive reasoning. I wouldn't call that specifically
That's
algebra. That's just how
That's
it's wrote.
algebra. That's
Yes,
algebra.
it is. At the most basic level.
Yes.
The more extreme versions of algebra I have not used. I haven't. Things I learned in algebra 1.5, I have not used. To the point that I've forgotten how to do them because my brain never bothers to access that knowledge and hasn't for 10 years.
I bet you use more than you know.
Dude, do you think I remember how to do long division? I can't do long division. I can't write it out. I can't do it in my head.
Sure you can. Yes, you can.
No, I physically can't.
I bet you could.
If I go and get a textbook,
you
I
thought
can
about it for a
relearn
minute?
it. No, I have tried. This is a fun little thing that I've done with myself is I have tried.
This is a problem then. This is
I
a
never
problem
use it.
if you can't.
If I want to use it, if I needed to learn how to do it again, I could go learn it really quickly, and I'm sure it would come back like reading a bike. But just sitting right here, or riding a bike.
I know. I just haven't grasped my son because I can't.
I have not used that knowledge since I learned it in high school. And I probably won't use it again for years to come until some situation crops up and I'll have to treat that like a situation where I don't know something and have to find it out. I don't retain information that I haven't used in 10 years.
I would lay dollars to donuts. If you were out in the woods, no cell service and no phone, and you had to do some long division, I would lay dollars to donuts. You could sit there and in 5 to 10 minutes, you could figure it out.
I can do simple math and simple division in my head. Yeah. But when it gets into long division, the stuff that you'd have to write out, I can't remember how to do it. I have no memory. If I push myself, I've done it once or twice where I've had to like fight through a long multiplication problem. I've managed that it's not, at the top of your head where you can spout it off. Absolutely. Yeah. Although I think it's in your head. You just would have to stop and think about it. A few years ago, I sat down with a friend because I asked him to help me learn it again. And he was like, oh, it's really easy. You just do this. And he's like, okay, we'll do this thing. And I was like, what's that thing? How do you do that thing? I have no memory of it. It is not there anymore. It is gone. The long division is long gone because I have not used it a single time in my life since I learned it in my teenage years.
You're not old enough because I have used it.
Congratulations. I mean, maybe my memory is just bad, but
and you will use it. It may
I'm
only
sure
be
someday I
once
will
in your life, but anyways, William,
or crack out my phone.
We're talking about long division. I think the show's over. Herschel Walker, you're in it because you're famous. And the professor, you either were a scapegoat as you're too old, and this is an easy answer, or you were wrongly fired. We're not sure which.
Yeah. If by some off chance Herschel Walker or his campaign crew is watching this, worry more about your ex-girlfriends, your ex-wives, and your children, and leave Georgia to professionals. Go find a different job.
He's applying.
Oh yeah,
Why?
He's already applied. He's already on the ballot, and there's a good chance he'll win.
He's running for the Senate. What are the qualifications to be a politician? Will, come on now. There's no professional politician that.
Be a good liar.
What's the opening scene in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey?
It's been a hot minute.
When his son's in school, and
I can't remember it.
And the teachers is asking all the kids what their dad does, and he said, "My dad's a liar." He said, "What do you mean your dad's a liar?" "Oh, you mean lawyer?" And he said, "That's what I said, a liar." The same can be said of politicians.
Yeah, I feel like that is the skill to being a politician, is just be a good liar.
You
The
and
best
Jack need
politicians
to
are the
sing.
best liars.
Yeah, the
Okay,
ones
I
who
don't
win
defend
the
him
most, yeah.
anymore.
No, you don't. I'll give you that. Okay, William,
Okay, Dave.
do you have anything to say to our fine viewers before we hit the finish button on this thing?
I do. Stay safe, don't die, and have yourselves a good night.